Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be working on this Matchbox Toyota Supra Turbo. Matchbox released this casting in 1995, and this white variation was the first year model. They released this casting all the way up to the year 2000. Last year was a black car with a red line going from the front all the way to the back. I also own that one. I don't have it with me right now, but I own it. And let's take a closer look. From the front, let me turn the turntable off. From the front here, the roof doesn't look like it's been bent out of shape, but the rear spoiler does look like somebody stepped on it. We do have the tail lights here, so I'm hoping we could get some nice details. Got a metal base, Toyota Supra Turbo, Matchbox International. You see registration date of 1994, a year before it was released. So we got a metal base, one post held together by a tab here in the back. So we're going to be drilling that one, take it apart, see what we find inside. Let's go. All right, guys. So I washed it off. I'm gonna put this to the side so it dries out, but you can see it's brand new. Now the windshield, it's not looking that bad, but this part here, it really surprised me, because that means that when I paint, I have to paint that area the same color that I'm gonna paint the casting. For now, I'm gonna be using rubbing compound. I like using rubbing compound because this is kind of grainy, not that much, right? But instead of using sandpaper, I go for that first. If that doesn't fix it, then I'll jump into the sandpaper. And I got a link to all this stuff down in the video description. So I'm gonna clean it up with this and see what we got. And if it looks good, it's kind of rough on this area right here. I'm gonna put it in some easy off to see if I could remove this paint. If not, it doesn't really bother me. I'll just paint over it. That way I know exactly where I have to paint. So let me do that and I'll be back. Alright guys, check it out. As you can see, the windshield improved a whole lot, but we still have a lot of marks. Feels smooth, but it doesn't look smooth. So I'm going to be using my micro mesh. Here they start from 1500 all the way to 12,000. I want to use the 1500 because I don't want to take that long of a time, and then probably go down to 3600 and then 6000 maybe, depending on how I see it. So let's get to it. Alright guys, check out the progress, and as you can see it is not very transparent because of the sanding, but we don't have as much pitting. So now I could just dip it in the floor shine, or what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna change the adapter here, put a new one, and I'm gonna switch over to this car polish right here, and we'll see how it ends up. Alright guys, check it out. You can see it's a way better. Now if you don't see it completely transparent, don't worry, because not all plastics are the same, and next step should fix everything and it should be crystal clear except for the yellowing part, and because this one originally wasn't crystal clear, it looks like it has a mild tint to it. Now I don't know if you notice how I put my Dremel and how I work it, that way all the splatter goes away from your face. And when you sand, don't sand in the inside, because very rarely are you going to have any scratches on the inside. All the scratches are always going to be on the outside. So now what I'm going to do is, before I dip it on the floor shine, I'm going to paint this area black with a Sharpie, because black will actually match or work with any color that I use. So I'm going to do that and I'll be back. Alright guys, I did about 3 coats of Sharpie and I have the pledge solution ready. This is it right here, floor gloss. I think any floor gloss will work, doesn't have to be pledge brand. Now this is gonna be a first time for me. I don't know how the Sharpie is gonna react once I dip it. Wish me luck. Alright guys, so now you gotta make sure you don't have any excess in the corners. That's why you use a napkin. Use a piece of tweezers here to grab it where it doesn't matter, where it's not gonna be seen. I already can see 2 spots here where it's not really taking. So I'm gonna dip it again and I'll be back. Alright guys, so I'm gonna cover this up. As you can see, the Sharpie is looking good, nice and smooth. So I'm gonna cover this up and forget about it until I deal with the car. That's why I like doing this step first. Of course, the next step is gonna be I gotta choose the wheels, make sure they fit, the stands, all that, and then I could remove the paint and do the rest of the process. And I'll be back. Oh, and this goes back at the bottom. All right, so one of the first things you saw me do was drill and tap the post. I like to do that first. I don't want to leave it to the end after the car has been painted. I don't want to take the risk of damaging the paint. So now let's open this up so we can start working with the axle. All right, so looking through my wheels, I had these 2 sets here, which I really wanted to use, but they are way too small for this casting. This casting has a very large opening on the wheel well, so they look tiny, look. So they're not gonna work. The only wheels that I found that look okay with this car are these. They have about the right size, as you can see there. Same size front and rear. And as you can see, they are short. It's a short axle, so they're not gonna fit here. So we have to cut them in half and make new axles. Okay, so there is different methods on how to create axles, and I'm gonna show you. The first thing that you could do is easiest way, for example, is for me to cut this axle right here, cut this one in half, because I do need a longer axle on this occasion. And then I'm going to install these wheels here, and then all I got to do is run measure out, because these are thinner than these, so I got to make sure that they'll fit. But then all I got to do is put a little bit of glue here, gel glue, wait for it to dry, and the wheel is not going to come off. You've probably seen me do that a bunch of times. Today we are not going to use that method. There is another method where you could buy a rod, brass rod. Let's see if I have it right here. 0.032. This is the same size as the Hot Wheels axle. Hot Wheels uses two sizes. This is the most common one. They do have a thicker one, which I think is similar to this one. This one definitely looks a little bit thicker. So Hot Wheels uses the thicker axle for big casting where the separation needs to be bigger than normal. That's where they use the thicker axle. So this is the same, has the same thickness as this, and it'll work perfect. Now with this, is very soft. You could get a plier, cramp it on one side, put your tires in, your wheels, making sure you have this the perfect size that you need, and then just crimp it on the other side. Personally, not a big fan of that method, because when you look up close, you can see the crimp axle, and I prefer, if I have to do it quick, I'd rather cut one side and use a little bit of glue on one side, because at least on the other side I have the flat spot of the original axle. So we're not going to be using that method either. What we're going to be using is some 1/16 tubing. It comes in brass, 1/16 tubing, as you can see, but I'm not going to be using brass. It also comes in aluminum. When it comes to doing cars, I like doing with aluminum, because aluminum is softer, easier to cut, easier to deal with. The brass, you could use a safety knife or a box cutter. You can see the condition of my blade here. But brass tends to be a little bit more difficult. I prefer using a cutoff wheel on my Dremel to cut brass. Now aluminum, it'll cut perfect. Here's an example. Now I like, when I'm cutting aluminum, since it's so soft, I like to put inside a piece of axle. In this case, I'll use this piece of brass. Let me open this side up a little bit. Now let's say we measured here, so we're around there, and now we get our box, our knife, and I use the, okay, so the brass, all right, here it is. I use this so the tubing does not collapse. Let me give you an example. I already have the ones I need done, so this is just so you can see. Now when I'm doing like a suspension wheel or something like that, then I definitely have to use the brass tubing, because it's a lot stronger, especially if it's a suspension build or something like that. It's a lot better to do use brass. The reason I'm going very slow is because I don't want to damage the brass rod inside, because then it won't come off easily. There it is. So now you got yourself a piece of axle. And what I'm gonna do now is I cut this one in half. Have one here, perfect size. You can see fits perfect in there. I cut this in half, and I'm going to show you how to put it together. Alright, so got my tools here. Beads. I'm going to show you different methods for doing this. Next step, take the axle here, cut it, hold both ends so they don't fly out. There you go. Make sure that you have a clean cut. There goes the tubing. Give me a second. Alright. So before you do anything, make sure you can get the axle in, because sometimes when you cut, it's not clean and it won't go in. Have a nice file ready. Clean the borders here. If you were doing a shorter axle, then you're gonna have to cut a little bit more. Since I need a longer one, then I don't really have to cut anything off for now. We're gonna test. So it goes in. Let's try the other side. There it is. So now there is a few methods that you can use for this. You could glue it in just like it is. In this case you can't, because you got to remember, the inner tubing is only, it's going to stay inside this metal chassis, so there needs to be some slack here. So you can use glue, but you run the risk of getting glue on the rim, so it won't roll, nice and smooth. A long time ago, we used to have these beads right here. You get them on eBay. They're not perfect. Right here. This way, if you're gonna use glue, the glue will stay. Out of focus. Here. Some of them won't fit. They're not all the same size. So in this case, if you're gonna use glue, the glue is gonna stay on the side of the bead. So when you install it, it's gonna look like that. So there is a variation of colors. I try to separate the black ones, but I haven't used this method in a long time. Another way is to cut little grooves on the tube here. That's a method that I've been using for a very long time. And then what that allows you to do is install both sides, and once you have it nice and ready where you want it, you dab some glue on it. Today, for this custom right now, I'm not gonna do any of that. I'm gonna be using the crimp method. So it's just, I grab this, I'm gonna try to place it here. That way I could get a perfect fitment here. Take this off. I want to put that tube inside the chassis here. Make sure it's flush. Push on this side, make sure the piece of axle is all the way in. Make sure it's all the way in on the other side. And the beauty about using aluminum tubing is that you could use a needle nose plier here. Basically just crimp it. And that's not going to allow the axle to come out. Now, since the aluminum is softer, you might bend it a little, like I did right there. But it doesn't matter because the wheels are on. And this is a good, easy method when you just want to test out, fitment and all that. Make sure it rolls. See, right now I could tell that these tires are they're big, and I'm gonna have problems if I want this to roll. Since I have a metal chassis, I can't bring them in, and I don't wanna. To me it looks good like this. So I might be able to get away with grinding just a little bit. So essentially you have two methods of doing this. Either the wheels get tucked in, or some people like them like this, where they stick out a little bit. I'm gonna have to make a decision now. So let me think about it, and I'll be back. All right, guys, I thought about it, and I'm gonna use these. It's the easier solution, and I may have to modify the chassis a little bit, but it's a lot better to modify the chassis a little bit than grind off this area right here, which is already too big. Now, as you can see here, it looks like it has a lot of space, but if I lower the car a bit, it doesn't look really weird. So you're not going to be able to see in here, because once I install the interiors, that's going to block everything off. Now this is the area where I'm talking about. If I lower the car a little bit, you can see that the tire basically almost clears this piece of metal here. So I'm gonna cut this off or grind it down. And this is exactly why you deal with all this before you paint. Imagine if I had painted and then I would have met the surprise that these wheels don't fit, and I would have had to grind down the chassis after it had been painted. Just a hot mess. So let me adjust this area right here, and I'll be back. Check it out. It's been, I think, 2 days now. Let me change the angle here so I can show you what I did. First of all, I had to grind down these areas. That way it was able to roll. Suspension still works, so you can see. But you gotta be careful not to hit a speed bumps, because it will scrape. Show you real quick. Like I mentioned, I put a piece of polystyrene to lift the axle up. That would lower the stance of the car. And here is the custom axle. Now, because these rims do not have the little nipple in the back like the Hot Wheels wheels have, I had to use one of the little pebbles here. That way it'll give me some separation from the rim from the border here. And here is where I cut the little holes here to be able to put glue in it. And as you can see, I went with brass. Here's the back side, same deal here. So now, next step, as you can see, the casting does have some corrosion marks. I'm gonna dip it lime away. Lately I haven't been using my electro polish system because I don't have where to set it up, and I don't want to dig all that out just to do one car. You know, I usually like to set it up and have 2 or 3 or 4 cars, you know, to be able to do them. If I only have one, I'll use the lime away. It's a lot quicker. Basically, you get a little bowl, pour enough liquid where it covers up the car, and you leave it for 4 minutes, and then you wash it off, clean it off with a steel wool or a brass brush. And I'm going to show you after I do that. And then, depending on how everything looks, I might do a zinc plating, which I also have a video on that. And I also have a video on the electro polish. No, I do not have a video on the electro polish. For the electro polish, if you want to learn how to do it, go over to Bare Metal's channel, and he has a very good video on how to do that. Let me see if, since we're here, let me see if I get there you go. And I just fixed the rear spoiler. That was simple. Nice. All right, see you in a few. All right, guys, check it out. Definitely improved, but you can still see some of the corrosion marks. So we're gonna have to do some zinc plating. And I don't think I showed you before. I had to use my Dremel here with this adapter, the drum grinder, I think it's called. And I ate away here in the inside, and that basically gives you the enough space for the wheel to go up and down when it's doing the suspension thing. So let me do the zinc plating and I'll be back. Alright guys, check it out. So I did the zinc plating and light polish. You see, we still see some of the marks, but I don't want to sand. Here's the base. So we are ready for paint. We're gonna paint and I will show you the final product. Alright guys, let's take a look at what we started with. You can see it was in very bad shape, to the point where most people might just throw it away, but not me. Let's take a look at the finished product. And here it is. You can see the windshield turned out great, and the wheels set properly. If you're wondering about the color, it's black chrome. I did the same paint job as the previous video, which was the Nissan hardbody. But like I mentioned in that video, I had to do a lot of coats on the Nissan, and you can see it ended up being a lot darker. Now the Supra, see how it looks? Look at the tail lights. Painted this front lip red, matched the interior, and it still rolls. Don't get confused. And the suspension still works. I'm very proud of this one. That's gonna be it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this movie. It's a long one. I basically did this video this way. That way I can redirect people whenever they ask how to do different things when customizing a diecast. So I'm gonna put up links to different videos there if you want to take a look. Remember to subscribe and hit that little bell so you could get notified of my upcoming video. Peace out.